The autumn wind cut through the air like a blade, but Declan Westbrook didn't feel it. The cold was just a constant in his life, both outside and in. At 6 p.m., the shadows of Manhattan's skyscrapers stretched like accusing fingers over the city. He walked with the measured pace of a man who commands time, not one who is commanded by it. His reflection in a jewelry store window showed the product of a lifetime of battle: an impeccable suit, a watch worth more than an apartment, and the empty gaze of a king in a queenless castle. At 38, the boy who had slept in shelters now owned a financial empire. He had conquered hunger, poverty, and obscurity. But loneliness was an adversary his money couldn't buy or intimidate. It was a silent partner in his empty penthouse. That's when he felt it, not a strong pull, but an insistent touch on the fabric of his coat, a small anchor in the sea of his indifference. Annoyed, Declan looked down and saw a small, dirty hand with scratches on the knuckles, clinging to the expensive wool as if it were a life raft. His eyes followed the hand to a face, a little girl, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, messy brown hair, her face stained with streaks of dried and fresh tears. Her dress, once perhaps pink, was now a gray rag, too big for her fragile frame. She clutched a brown teddy bear whose button eyes seemed to have witnessed a war. But it was her eyes that paralyzed him. A deep blue, swollen from crying, yet they stared at him with an intensity he hadn't seen in years. Without fear, just a raw need. Declan looked around, searching for a responsible adult. No one. The world continued its frantic dance, oblivious to the small tragedy unfolding on his sidewalk. "Excuse me," he said, his voice harsher than he intended. Instinct screamed, "Call the police. Don't get involved. Move on." The little girl took a deep breath, mustering a courage that seemed too big for her small chest. Her lips trembled. "Can you," she began, her voice a fragile whisper, "be my daddy? Just until Mommy comes back?" The question wasn't a punch. It was the silent removal of a cornerstone in his fortress. For a moment, the city's noise disappeared. He knelt, the expensive fabric of his trousers protesting against the dirty concrete. "Where is your mother?" he asked, forcing calm into his voice. The girl hugged the bear. "Mommy went to live in heaven," she whispered, the childish innocence making the word death even more brutal. "I don't have anyone else." His heart skipped a beat. "And your father?" "I don't have one. It's always been just me and Mommy." The procedure was clear: call social services. But then he saw the tremor in her shoulders, not from crying, but from the cold. He remembered the feeling of hunger, of the cold that gnaws at your bones. "What's your name?" he asked, buying time. "Isabella, but Mommy called me Bella." "Are you hungry, Bella?" She nodded shyly. The question was a bridge, and he had built it without realizing it. "Let's get something warm to eat," he said, surprising himself. He extended his hand, and after seconds that felt like a lifetime, Isabella's small, cold hand found his. The contact was an electric shock, a forgotten connection. In the cafe, Declan watched her devour a sandwich while a chocolate mustache formed above her lips. He fought the urge to smile. "Why did you choose me?" he insisted, needing to understand. Isabella looked him straight in the eye. "You looked sad, like me. And Mommy used to say that sad people understand other sad people." And then, she added, "And you have my Mommy's eyes." The answer completely disarmed him. That night, Declan broke all his rules. He took her home, to the empty fortress that for the first time seemed to have a purpose. "Do you promise you won't leave me alone?" she asked at the elevator door. "I promise that for tonight you won't be alone," he replied, the only truth he could offer. The penthouse was a testament to his power, cold, vast, silent, Isabella entered as if stepping into a museum. The following days were a blur of awkward adjustments. Declan, the man who commanded boardrooms, was now lost in the children's section of a department store. Isabella, the girl who had nothing, seemed overwhelmed by the idea of choosing. "The purple one is pretty," she said, and it was the first choice she made. Declan bought 5. He learned that she didn't like the dark, that her bear was named Mr. Buttons, and that her silence wasn't empty, but full of observations. Slowly, the questions came like a gentle rain. "Do you have kids? Why do you live alone? Did your mommy go to live in heaven too?" Each answer was a stone removed from the wall around his heart. "Now you have me," she said one day, touching his hand across the kitchen table. "And I have you." A week later, she gave him a drawing. 2 stick figures holding hands. "That's us," she explained. "And this is our home." That night, he looked at the drawing and understood the fear he felt. It wasn't the fear of getting involved, it was the fear of losing again. The inevitable happened on a Thursday morning. Social services. "Mr. Westbrook," a woman named Karen said, "we understand your concern, but legally we can't just leave her here." "What do I need to do?" Declan asked, his voice no longer that of a confused man, but of a CEO. "I want to have permanent custody of her." But protocol had to be followed. Isabella would have to go to a temporary shelter. "Bella," he knelt, his heart breaking, "be strong, like the little tree, remember? It bends, but it doesn't break," she answered in a whisper. When the elevator door closed, taking her away, the silence of the penthouse became deafening. Declan picked up the phone. "Call my lawyer, and get the best specialist in the country. I don't care about the cost." 3 days later, after a fierce legal battle, Declan secured an emergency temporary custody. Isabella was back. On the first morning together again, while having hot chocolate with marshmallows, Isabella took out her old backpack. "I want to show you something." She pulled out a folded and worn photograph. "This is my mommy." She handed it to him. And then the world stopped. It wasn't just a familiar face. It was her, Evelyn. The smile that haunted his memories. The eyes he now saw every day in Isabella's face. My Evelyn. The college girl he loved and left behind in his blind pursuit of power. "Are you crying?" Isabella's voice brought him back. I knew your mother, Bella." His voice failed him. "We were more than friends." He looked from Isabella to the photograph and back to Isabella. The same eyes, the same way she tilted her head. How had he not seen it before? "Mommy had a picture of you too," Isabella said suddenly. "She said you were very smart, but that you only thought about money and work." She paused. "But you're not like that anymore. Now you take care of me." On the day of the adoption hearing, the judge asked Declan why he thought he was prepared to be a father. "Your Honor," Declan began, "I've spent my whole life building an empire, believing that was strength. But this little girl taught me that strength isn't building walls. It's having the courage to tear them down. She didn't fill a void in my life. She showed me I was hollow. I am not adopting her to save her. I am asking to adopt her because in every way that matters, she has already saved me." When Isabella was called, she walked to Declan and without a word, took his hand. The simple, confident gesture silenced the room. The adoption was granted. That same day, they went to the cemetery. Isabella placed a single daisy on her mother's headstone. "Mommy," she whispered to the cold stone, "I have someone now. You can rest." Declan, standing behind her, felt the tears fall freely. He looked down at the small hand holding his and understood. His empire wasn't the buildings or the numbers in a bank account. His empire was that small hand. And for the first time in his life, Declan Westbrook felt truly immeasurably rich.